Folks, it finally happened. I have no fox left to give. Actually, that's a lie. I have Trifox, a 3D platformer that attempts to marry this familiar genre with twin-stick shooting mechanics. Is developer Glowfish Interactive Studios successful in doing so, or did they fox it all up? Our adventure begins with Trifox watching and somewhat emulating an action show on the boob tube, when suddenly the screen shatters and our foxy hero is knocked out by invading goons. What's worse than being incapacitated? Having your TV remote stolen, of course. Looks like the swiping tables have turned on Swiper. Well, I guess I'd be thankful if thieves invaded my home and only took the remote. That television means the world to Trifox. In fact, his predicament was somewhat relatable for me, in that one tiny thing going missing or not working out the way I envisioned feels like the end of the world. Anxiety sufferers out there, let's unite! Nobody outfoxes the fox, of course, and so Trifox sets out to reclaim his remote from these weird alien robot thingies, but the story never really goes much further than that. Does it need to? No, it doesn't. It sets the scene and the rest is left to gameplay. As you complete different levels through 3 worlds, well, technically 4, you will see various TV broadcasts from the game's villains that keep the narrative moving, but at the end of the day, this is a 3D platformer, and just as you would expect, you won't find deep character development or plot twists here. So overall, it's a serviceable, if not a bit predictable formula to carry the game forward. Things are not going to feel as natural as you'd expect starting out, as the game controls like a twin-stick shooter, which is a bit jarring, but you do eventually get a feel for things. It just might fox with your mind a bit. You move with the left stick, just as you would imagine, but the right stick controls the direction that you'll be aiming. You can jump, of course, as there are a decent amount of platforming sections littered across this 6 to 10 hour journey, but where things really take a turn is in the movement perk system. Trifox allows for 3 different playstyles: a warrior, which is more melee based, a mage for ranged attacks, or an engineer that allows for the use of missiles and other gadgets. The cool thing about this system is that you aren't tied to one specific class, and you can mix and match different abilities together. Just about every button in the game can perform an action, and it's wonderful that you choose which abilities go where. As you earn more coins throughout levels, you'll be able to purchase more and more of these different abilities. Want to hurl missiles at enemies while having a shield around you? It's totally possible. Or maybe you'd prefer a more aggressive setup. The skill tree is not limitless, but does make for some fun combinations. My biggest gripe with how Trifox felt? The movement speed. Your character slowly ramps up to a run, and I very much would have preferred a constant sprint. Character speed really sucks out a great deal of fun and energy from this title, but hopefully it's something that can be addressed in a future patch. Let's just say this is one fox that could never be friends with Sonic. Trifox has a main hub reminiscent of Crash Bandicoot Warped, where you can access these various upgrades and builds, as well as select between levels. Each world is broken up into 3 levels and ends with a boss battle. Don't expect anything mind-blowing out of the level design, as it's fairly straightforward. Your typical beach world or factory setting are ever present, and while a decent amount of collectibles are here for the collecting, much of these worlds consisted of trudging slowly forward and taking out the next big wave of enemies to progress. I was almost reminded a bit of Knack at times, which is probably not the most flattering of comparisons, but far too often Trifox can feel like a slog. That said, some of the game's best moments come from action segments like rolling down a river or manning a turret gun while riding along train tracks. I feel like more sections like these could have really helped with pacing, as they ended up being some of my favorite parts of the game. Still, at least there is enough variety in your character loadouts to keep the moment-to-moment combat just interesting enough to not lure players entirely into a deep sleep. You do have a magic meter to go along with your health bar, but neither are really that important. You will die here or there, but it will mostly have to do with just running into bad luck versus skill. This game is not difficult, though there are difficulty options which might help with that. I say that having not been able to complete the game, but more on that later. Every now and then, Trifox will also attempt a puzzle, though I use the term lightly. Most of these involve the simple hitting of switches or placing an item into a designated slot in order to supply power. Still, credit the developer for at least attempting to mix things up a bit. As far as visuals are concerned, I thought Trifox looked serviceable. Characters have a low poly look, and some of the environments are halfway decent to look at. Every now and then you'll also get some nice camera work, though some of the angles are not so flattering. Some pretty nice lighting and effects exist here and there, and I've found the overall overall look of the game pleasant enough. It's a shame then that a few bugs hampered my experience. There were multiple times throughout where a door wouldn't open after clearing out enemies. I bumbled around like a fool for a good 10 minutes thinking I was missing something, only to have to reload the game and discover that it wasn't my fault at all. The most egregious was the final boss. Remember when I talked about this earlier? Well, here we go. I couldn't even do damage to the damn boss. It doesn't help that most of the game was a breeze, but then you get to the final boss and it's absurdly difficult. There's so many enemies constantly coming at you and missiles flying everywhere. I lost my cool. Let me tell you, there's almost nothing worse than playing through the entirety of a game. Granted, I didn't have 100% completion, but I was at the end of the game and running into a stupid, annoying, hard boss out of nowhere that ruins the whole thing. I dropped the sucker down to easy and I still couldn't beat him because the bullets started doing no damage. I didn't even bother to restart. I was done with the game at that point. In the end, I just walked away annoyed, which is not the place you want to be. I think the game does a pretty good job of mixing 3D platforming with twin stick shooting, but the slow movement kills any of the fun at times. It's an attractive enough looking game that runs at high frame rates, but also has annoying bugs and an absurd final boss. And while it features lovely sound design, I ended up walking away from the game feeling like it was ultimately forgettable. It's just a budget title that might hold you over until something better comes along, maybe, but at the same time, with so many better options available, I can't fully recommend this one. Did I have some fun? Yeah, here or there, but did I wish I were just playing a great 3D platformer instead, and there's plenty of those? Yeah, I did.